just about there. Give me 1 second. Just want to make sure this is up for everyone to be able to see. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed. I am your host, Michael Voss, the political dragon. I'm happy to be here with you. It is Sunday, August 20th, and we are making sure that everyone can see the channel, see our live stream. We are live on Rumble. We are on YouTube. I believe we are on Facebook and Twitter as well. They sometimes get a little sketchy with what they allow us to do, so we may or may not be live there as well. But we're looking forward to be able to speak with you and to see everything that you have to say. So just bear with us as we're doing the technical background stuff for just a second here. And then we'll be getting started live. And it looks like YouTube is doing something stupid with our system right now. So please, if anyone's watching, everyone who is watching, please let me know if you can see everything, because it looks like we may be being blocked. I'm not sure. Now, let me also mention before we get started, our phone lines are still down at the moment. It costs money to do the program. It always has. And so we don't have the money at the moment, so our phones are down, but you can still reach us on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, through the chat messages, and we look forward to being able to hear your voices that way. If this is the first time that you are joining us, we do want to say hello, and thank you for being part of our audience. We do appreciate the time you're giving us here today. We do long-form political commentary, and as you can see, we do spend every Sunday for over 5 years now speaking with you about the issues that matter, because we believe in the First Amendment. We believe in your right to be able to speak about the issues that affect us all. And we look at it from a U.S. base, but we look at international policy and politics as well as the domestic and local. We try and cover it all. And we have an audience around the world, so if you are in Peru, India, Sweden, Italy, the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Canada, you know what? You're in good hands, because you're joining people throughout the entire United States and the rest of the world in watching this program. And I see Mike Bowie's with us. He says he's mowing his lawn, but I'm coming through loud and clear, so I'm happy to hear that. Thank you for that, Mike. We always try to make sure that we can be heard. And we're more than happy if you listen to us as you go to sleep, or if you're watching it while we're live. We appreciate you no matter when you listen in, or any comment that you might make. And today is a good day for doing mowing and yard work, that's for sure. So it's summer. It's the middle of summer. A lot of people are on vacation. People are trying to distract themselves from the day-to-day trudge of what's going on. We have the Maui fires that are going on right now. People who are going overseas are running into the complications of higher tensions around the globe. We have higher costs, more inflation, more of a recession, more of a food crisis that is going on right now. Meanwhile, we're being told here in the United States, everything's fine. Don't worry. Europe's in a recession. The United Kingdom hit 18% inflation, but the United States is all rainbows and unicorns and candy. Everything's fantastic. You just don't understand. We dispute that. We dispute that significantly, because it's not true. And I know everyone right now is very much focused in the United States on the Maui fires, much like we're often captivated by the California fires or the fires in Canada. But these are things that are happening because of policies that have been put in place that we were promised would protect us. They're going to protect the earth, and everything will be okay. And it's those very same policies that have led to devastation for individuals. And we see our government have no compassion. The Biden-Harris administration has zero compassion for human beings and Americans. We've seen this in Sudan. We've seen this in the Ukraine and in Afghanistan. And now we see that same lack of compassion being on display in Maui. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But we're also going to be talking about several other things, like what happened with Larry Elder. when Larry Elder went on to BET's program, The Breakfast Club, and he actually had to address something that we've been talking about since May 24th of 2020. Something that has been said over and over again, not just on this channel, but by many Black and Hispanic Americans and people around the world, and somehow no one has figured it out until Larry Elder decided to say the same thing on BET's The Breakfast Club. Suddenly, there is this awakening amongst the Black Americans in the news media, the ones that are promoted, that suddenly they go, oh my God, someone has been insulting us for 3 years and no one's addressed it. It's insulting. It's terrible. We have a new person joining us today. That is Ghost of Aunt Jemima? Well, that's a really odd name there. Okay. Biden, money for Ukraine, yes. Also Biden, money for Maui, no. Yeah. Ghost, you nailed it. He's more than happy to give billions upon billions of dollars to the Ukraine. He's barely willing to try and... He doesn't even cover the rent of 1 month. We'll get into that with Maui. You're dead on, though. Joe Biden, the Biden administration, no compassion for Americans in a time of state of emergency, of absolute need. Just ignores them. It's really insulting. And we need to address that because we need to address what's happening in our nation. But I always like to start initially in the channel with going over what's happening internationally, and then we get into the domestic. But yet, how does what's happening internationally affect the United States, and the United States affect the globe? Let's start off with that. And then we'll get into Biden and Maui and quite a few other things. So I wanted to start off with what's happening in Canada right now. There's something called the C-18 bill, something that a lot of Americans may not have heard about, although it's being attempted here. Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, wanted to increase the amount of censorship under the control of the government. It's very much like what we see with Senator Richard Blumenthal, Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut. They want to increase the amount of government censorship to silence voices. They want more government in the middle of your life, controlling everything you get to see. And that's what Bill C-18 in Canada, that's exactly what it does. It is the government saying that Google, Facebook, the social media giants have to pay Canada to be able to show news to Canadian people. This is something that passed this year, this month, August of 2023. And this is a test. This is something that's being done in Canada so that it can be done here in the United States. It is a way to impose more government control over what you see and what you hear. This is meant to weed out small channels like my own, to weed out anyone who is not approved and pushing the message that the government wants you to hear. And when we see this, when we look at this, C-18, why was this done? To give the government control. They say they want more money. It's the government getting more tax money because they're broke. They're spending more than they can actually raise. And it locks out any other voice talking to you about what's important. And that's why they did this. It's called the Online News Act. Americans should pay attention to this because this is coming to America. This is a policy that, again, Democrats like Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut, who, along with the Socialist Party of America, the Communist Party of America, that he speaks to, that he receives money from, they want to silence your voice. And it's happening, they say, because they want to make sure that journalism is safe and secure and that you have access to everything you need. Here's the reality, though. And this is what happens when you put government in the middle of your ability to see news. This is what happens when you lose the freedom of speech, when you lose the First Amendment. What happens? Well, we see it here from Canada Proud. And we see this woman, she's talking about Canada. Now, you can see the words down on the bottom, in a second when it recycles. I'm going to play this for you so that you can hear this for yourself, because I think it's important that we understand this.
Just so done.
Here
I
it goes.
cannot handle another ounce of Justin Trudeau in this country. So the area that I live in is literally on fire. People are being...
Let me stop right there. We know that there are wildfires in Canada. They have been going on for months. It's very much like what we see in California, where because the Canadian government, like California's government, has not been maintaining its forest, because they just let the underbrush grow, the wildfires go rampant and are larger than we have ever seen before. It's not because of global warming. It has nothing to do with the temperature on the planet. It has nothing to do with any of the issues that the eco-fanatics have. It has to do with maintaining the forest, cutting down dead trees, removing dead leaves. That they're not doing that. And because they don't do that, because those very same global climate change activists are telling them, you can't touch the trees, you can't touch the forest, it's green, we need the world green, green, green. And now we get wildfires that are destroying the environment and people's homes. So that's the background here. That's what's been happening in Canada. And what happens?
Being evacuated, wildfires everywhere. And you see this right here? You go to CTV News, and us as Canadians, we can't even see what is going on in our country because of new laws that Justin Trudeau has passed. We can't see it. So what? Has this turned into a communist country now?
So because Justin Trudeau wanted to control the ability of Canadians to be able to see the news, because he wanted to control the approved message that people are able to have, he just denied people the ability to be safe. He denied them the ability to talk about fires, about the danger to their lives, their community, their ability to live. He has endangered Canadians. This is something like we saw in Maui. It's what we've seen in California. We have seen this over and over again. The government gets involved. The government is pushing a message of political ideology to protect themselves in elections, to be able to maintain power, to dumb down the public. And the consequence of that is that they endanger the very lives of the people they promised they were going to protect. This was supposed to help people. And what has it done? It has allowed people to be in danger. And we see this in California. We see it also in Maui. We also see it in California. We see this on a regular basis. This isn't new, but we are seeing this, and this is coming directly from Canada. This is the future when you have government and we have censorship, and they're controlling whose voice gets heard. They're picking the winners and losers. They're picking what you can choose, what voice you can hear, and predetermining what you're going to think. This is very simply all about censorship. This should be terrifying to people, that the government is so willing to oppress you that they don't care if they kill you. It doesn't matter, as long as they have power and control. And that's all that Justin Trudeau cares about. That's why he's so focused on it. It's one of the reasons why he considers the Chinese Communist Party to be something to be looked up to aspire to. He likes Mao. He thinks that's a good idea. It's kind of like our college students today who run around with t-shirts with the face of Chairman Mao, with the face of Che Guevara. They're running around with mass murderers on their t-shirts as if they are superheroes and that they're the good guys. They don't understand the consequences or the history of what they are doing. And that's why we see people like Justin Trudeau get away with what he's doing. Jan has joined us. Hello, Jan. Thank you for being part of the audience. And she says, good afternoon. Don't worry about being late. I enjoy people, whether you come in on time, a little bit late. We're here for you whenever you are ready. So we thank you, Jan, for being part of the audience and joining in. And so we're talking about that. This is how censorship affects you. A lot of people say, but Mike, I don't get it. Why is censorship so bad? Why are you so upset about it? They're just trying to protect us from disinformation, as they like to say, or misinformation, as they like to say. No, what they're doing is they're controlling the way you think. They're controlling what you get to hear and how it's going to affect them, the politicians. This is about power and control, and it can cost you your life. And that's what they're doing. And this is the example of how bad it is. This is how it affects us. This and Maui. They're great examples of that. But I wanted to also go into, since we are so busy talking about, the world is so busy focused on the censorship, so busy focused on Maui, which are serious issues, no doubt, that we're not noticing the other things that are happening right now. We now know North Korea has fired in this year, 2023, over 25 ICBMs, missiles, rockets. They have been firing off more weapons threatening South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, and the United States. Their missiles, the ICBMs in North Korea, can reach America, and they can make it through the shield of America. They have enough nuclear weapons to hit any city in America, and we cannot stop it. Something that you don't hear very often from the American news media, but if you speak to the Department of State, if you talk to the DOD, Department of Defense, they will tell you North Korea has enough nukes that they can hit any city in America with their nuclear weapons. That's a fact. It's not a question. It's not an opinion. These are facts. No one talks about it in the American news media because you're not supposed to think about that. But the fact is, they can. And now, what we're not talking about right this second is that North Korea is working with Russia, or at least it is believed by the mainstream news media, it is believed by many sources, that the missiles, the technology is being shared between Russia and North Korea. Again. And we now see yet again another connection that has been created by the Biden-Harris administration. When they ran away from the Taliban in Afghanistan, they started a series of dominoes. The nations that hate America, that hate Israel, that hate Europe, they all joined together, and they have been working together to defeat America and therefore to defeat democracy and capitalism around the world. We have seen China and North Korea, Iran and Russia working together. They're doing trade deals with each other. They're giving each other energy in terms of natural gas and oil. They're giving each other technology to be able to make missiles and tanks and drones. They are trading with each other because supposedly the embargoes, the embargoes being put in place by the Biden administration was supposed to punish Russia and anyone who works with them. Well, that's China. China's not being negatively affected. North Korea is getting more and more missile technology. Drones are coming from Iran straight to Russia, and we know this for a fact. The Biden administration hasn't defeated or slowed them down. In fact, he's made them stronger because North Korea doesn't like Russia. China doesn't like Russia. Iran doesn't like any of them. But they all hate America. They all hate Israel. They hate the European Union and the United Kingdom, and that is what is unifying them. Now, I do see the comment from Jan. Jan says, this doesn't surprise me because there are reports that Russian military has been in North Korea recently. Yes, and that's what we're talking about. This is a report that comes from, this is August 19th of 2023, so one day ago. And we see that the latest ICBMs, nuclear missiles that will be able to hit anywhere in America, are based off of the Russian counterpart. Russian nuclear ICBMs, missiles that can hit anywhere in America. And we're just finding that out. Mind you, this isn't the news that you're hearing about today. You look at the news media today, they're not talking about the fact that North Korea is improving its nuclear arsenal. At the same time that we have Iran that is trying to build its nuclear missile arsenal. At the same time that Russia is supporting them and being able to make nuclear missiles and threaten America. At the same time that China is building the world's largest navy, as the United States is missing its recruitment targets and we are actively shrinking our navy. No one wants to talk about these things. These are important things. This will affect your future. This is 3 regional wars. We've said it on this program many times. 3 regional wars happening simultaneously. And we are seeing this happen live in real time. This isn't some kind of game. We're seeing it happen. This isn't real-time strategy. This is the real world. And we are in the logistics phase of what we believe are 3 simultaneous regional wars. Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and Western Europe. And it's happening before your very eyes. We've been talking about it a long time, but the news media does not want you to think about this. They want you to think that everything is perfectly fine and there are no problems and everything is under control. They keep telling you it's all okay. They've got it under control. Here it is we're seeing with Japan. The U.S., Japan, and South Korea alliance sends a clear message to China. I want you to think about this. This is the news that came out today. Joe Biden, after taking a vacation, while there was the wildfires in Maui, while Americans were in danger, as Americans, 30,000 Americans overseas, continue to be forgotten and tortured. Tortured. Again, this is not an opinion. This comes directly from the State Department. This comes directly from the Biden-Harris administration. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of Americans that are being tortured right now. There are 30,000 Americans who want to come home and cannot because they're in the middle of war zones in Afghanistan, in Ukraine, and in the Sudan. And the American news media doesn't want to talk about it because you might change your vote, because you might not support Joe Biden. Because of that reason alone, they are more than willing to go out there and just ignore American lives. And they're going to boast and say, look, Joe Biden got to meet these guys. Doesn't this look like a friendly, happy picture? Look at these guys. They're all smiles and shaking hands. And Joe Biden's just like, ha, this is a party. Where's the ice cream? I want you to think about this for a second, because this is the part that's not spoken out loud. It's the part you're not supposed to think about. Why is the United States and Japan and South Korea making a first-time, brand-new deal? We're making an agreement to work together militarily that we have never done before. We have never had this discussion before. We have never had to make an agreement between Japan and South Korea to work together to fight off China. Never. This is the first time in the history of the world that we are seeing this with the United States. Why is it happening? Why do we need this today? It's not like America isn't in Southeast Asia. We have bases in Japan. We have bases in South Korea. We have treaty agreements like the U.S.-Japan 1960 treaty agreement that guarantees that the United States military will always protect and support Japan under any threat. That is literally what the treaty says. We will protect Japan against anyone under any threat at any time with the full force of the United States military. That is what the 1960 agreement says. Why are we having a new conversation with Japan and South Korea? This is the part the media doesn't want you to think about. Because no one trusts the treaty. Because no one trusts Joe Biden. We are seeing South Korea, Japan come together to talk with America because they do not trust Joe Biden. They do not trust that the American government will live up to the treaties they have made. That's why Japan has created a $325 billion army. They're building it right now because they don't trust Joe Biden. South Korea is becoming the fourth largest weapons manufacturer in the world because they don't trust Joe Biden. They are threatened by China and North Korea. And they have been since the day Joe Biden has gotten in office. It is an absolute reality. And you're not supposed to think about that. You're supposed to think, this is fantastic. This is great news. And why is this happening? Not to protect you. See, if you actually read past the headline, go past the happy picture that is there to make you think everything's okay, read down a little bit. Why is this happening? The number one reason, the most important reason why Japan and South Korea are meeting up with Joe Biden right now at Camp David is because of elections in 2024. I'm not making that up, folks. There it is. This is from the Nikkei Asia, credible international news agency. And what do they say? Timing in the Camp David summit is based on two calculations. One is the political calendar. Next year we'll see Taiwan and South Korea and the United States and Japan all having elections. This is about propaganda. This is about making you feel safe. Not being safe, feeling safe. I want you to understand that. They're not trying to protect you. They're not trying to stop war. They're trying to make you feel good so that they will get reelected. That's the ultimate goal. That is the number one purpose of why Joe Biden is meeting with Southeast Asia. Why we have the Southeast Asia big three: Japan, South Korea, and the United States. With behind that also the Philippines, Australia, New Zealand are all involved in this as well. They are all militarizing. None of them trust Joe Biden or the American government to protect them. They are all terrified of China, as China has guaranteed that they're going to at least attack Taiwan. And they are not backing down because of Japan. They're not backing down because of South Korea. They're definitely not backing down because of America run by Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. They are not backing down on that, and they have guaranteed they're going to go in. So when we think about that, we have to understand this is a display of weakness. This is weakness. The news media isn't even really talking about this because they don't want you to think about this, because you might realize the only reason why they have to make this brand new first time agreement, this new deal has to be created because the individual countries involved have lost faith and confidence in the United States. They have lost confidence in the ability of being protected. That's why they're doing this. That's why this is so necessary. The rest of the world does recognize it. They see for what it is. And they recognize, as we can see from Nikkei News, as I just showed you, this is about politics. Everything that the Biden administration does is about politics. It has nothing to do with making you safe. It has nothing to do with improving the quality of your life. It has nothing to do with helping the poor or DEI or anything else. Those are the headlines to keep you distracted. It's all about power. He wants to get reelected. That's why they're having this conversation. It's not because Japan's going to suddenly stop building the first army they've had since 1945. It's not because South Korea is going to stop trying to build a nuclear weapon. That's not stopping. They're not making the world more peaceful, more safe for you and your kids and everyone else. That's not happening. They're just looking to get reelected. Does that make sense? Do you see why I'm concerned about this? Why I think you should be concerned about this? Because this is affecting business. This is affecting vacations and travel and people's families around the world. This is international politics. This is affecting at least 15 nations around the world. And therefore it affects the entire world. Do you see why I'm concerned about this and why the mainstream news media doesn't want you to think about it? They want you to see the headline, they want you to see the picture, and they want you to say, it's all good. Everyone's happy and smiling. It must be okay. They've got it figured out. No, they don't. They're terrified. They're terrified, they're running scared, and they're playing politics. At least Joe Biden is playing politics because he needs a victory. He needs a win. He needs to give the American people and the world a reason to support him in 2024, because at the moment there isn't one. None at all. Now, if you are new on the channel, you may say, well, Mike, I don't agree. That's fine. I respect that, and that's perfectly fine. You can tell me why. If you tell me it's because you feel like whatever, I don't care. Your feelings are not important. I don't care about feelings. What we look at is because politics are not driven by feelings. People are manipulated by feelings in terms of politics, but politics don't pass laws. Politics don't get people elected or keep them in power. It's not about feelings. It's about what is happening. It's about the facts on the ground. It is about the reactions that are actually happening. And that's what we need to focus on. If you tell me, Mike, I think you're wrong, I get a different conclusion. Okay, fantastic. Explain to me that as is being recognized around the world, why is this not political? Because everyone else recognizes, the rest of the news media in the world recognize the number one reason everyone has an election next year. This is political, to make you feel safe so you will vote them back into power. That's the number one thing. What's the number two thing? To make China scared. To try and make China back down. Even though China has already said, America's weak. The American Navy is shrinking. The American military is shrinking. The American military has become soft and fuzzy and warm and friendly as they keep talking about their two moms and being a cheerleader rather than being worried about being a fighter, rather than being worried about being a warrior. China's not concerned. They could care less. They have no respect for the United States. They have said that over and over again to Joe Biden, to Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State. They have made these statements since June of 2021, the first time they started talking to the Biden-Harris administration. This is new. Jan says, it's the same thing with what's going on with Taiwan and China. Lots of media blackout. You're correct, Jan. The media, well, the U.S. media is blacking this out. But again, if you go to Nikkei Asia, you go to the Times of Japan, if you look at the Hindustan Times, there are news agencies around the world that are talking about these very critical issues, which we follow. Sky News is another one. If you're following international news and not just relying on CNN or MSNBC or ABC News and the way they want to edit the news, the way they want to chop it up into a minute and a half so that you can only hear the headline, see the happy photo, and forget. That's why news media segments are about a minute and a half to 3 minutes long. It's just long enough for you to hear the headline, see a picture, and forget whatever it is they just said to you. It is about manipulation. You're not supposed to remember, and they are able to edit the news media so that you can't see it. And by the way, for anyone watching this for the first time, everything you see on this channel, everything we're showing you here, you can, at the end of the show, we provide the links in the description, whether it's on Rumble or whether you're on YouTube. You can go into the description and you will see links for everything that we have shown you so you can read the entire article for yourself so that you can see exactly what we're talking about. And we're trying to give you the full context, but you can come to whatever decision you want to make. We just want to inform you. Make up your own mind. Don't just go by, well, CNN said, I don't care. CNN has an agenda. Don't go by their agenda. Read the article for yourself. Become informed for yourself. And I see Mike Bowie mentions, I don't trust Fox News either anymore. I don't trust any of them. I do not trust any one news agency. But I trust multiple agencies talking about the same story and looking at the different ways they cover it. Which is why you see that we're looking at this from not just Russia has been giving missile technology to North Korea. And we know that Joe Biden is out talking about North Korea and China amongst the big three in Southeast Asia. These are things that are happening all at the same time. And we know for a fact that throughout this year, we know that North Korea has been firing off missile after missile after missile. In fact, this is from the Missile Threat CSIS Missile Defense Project, counting all the missiles that have been fired. Mind you, this is last updated in April 25th of 2023, and it was inaccurate then. It has not been updated for 2023. They do not show a single missile fired in 2023. It is internationally confirmed that North Korea has fired at least 25 missiles, rockets, and ICBMs in 2023 alone, which means that in 2023 alone, this is 25. That means that that is the most. In 2023 alone, in the first 6 months of the year, there have been as many missiles fired by North Korea under the Biden-Harris administration as the most at any other president's time. More than any other president ever. That's just in 2023. That doesn't even count what happened in 2022 or 2021. That it shows North Korea has no fear nor respect for the Biden-Harris administration. The news media just doesn't want to tell you about this. It's not that it's not happening. They just don't want to discuss it. And you say, Mike, but they didn't show the data. Again, let me show you the truth. This is coming from the AP News. Again, I only use credible, internationally credible sources, if at all possible. And what do we get? North Korea fires 2 short-range missiles into the sea as the U.S. nuclear submarines are in South Korea. This is from July 18th of 2023. And I just showed you this has been updated in April 25th. So not only did they have the time to update this, not only do we know this is happening, but we know that the news media is not reporting this. You're not getting it. They wrote the story on the back page at the end of the newspaper where you're not going to pay attention. They gave it 30 seconds of attention, maybe 15 seconds of attention on the nightly news. At the end of the nightly news program when you're not paying attention anymore. They don't want you to know this. They say, oh, well, see, we did publish this. You just didn't know it ever existed. You didn't find it in the search engines. You didn't watch the program when it came out live. You were busy with other stories. This is the reality of the world that we are living in. So when I tell you that this is a threat, this is endangering your life, that it is becoming more militaristic, this is the proof I'm having for it. And the fact that NBC and ABC, CBS, CNN, just because the New York Times, just because they don't want to tell you about it, doesn't mean it isn't happening or that it's not important. It just means you don't know. Because that could change your vote. You may say, hey, Joe Biden isn't very effective at protecting America or our allies. Joe Biden is not respected around the world, even though that's what the Democrats would like you to believe. Joe Biden is leading us closer and closer to 3 regional wars. And we can see the logistics happening before our eyes. We are being told by our allies in Southeast Asia that they're getting ready for war. I mean, why else would you spend $325 billion to build up an army within 5 years? You don't do that because, hey, we've got an extra $325 billion in a global recession. You do that because you think you're going to be attacked. You do that to protect your people because you think you're going to have a war. It's that simple, folks. It is just that simple. Jan mentions that it's really sad that we have to go overseas to find out more about what's happening around the world and in America. I agree with you, Jan. Mike Maui says they're planning a nuclear deal with Iran for next year as well. Actually, the deal is supposed to go through this year. And we've been covering that since January 20th of 2021. We've been talking about the desperation of the Biden-Harris administration to make the Iran nuclear deal happen, to bring it back. Even though everyone in the world is against this. This is not a good idea. Not just Israel, but even Europe, even the EU this year has said they want to kill the deal. They want to kill the Iran nuclear deal. Why? Because it creates more terrorism in the world. It makes the world less safe. That is a fact. That is something we knew since January of 2016, as I have often mentioned on this channel. Then Secretary of State John Kerry went on to CNBC News and told the world that the United States was indirectly paying for global terror, that the Iran nuclear deal was funding global terrorism through Iran. That is a fact. It's not an opinion. It's not a question. It is not an interpretation. That is a fact. Look it up, folks. You can look it up for yourselves. CNBC News, January, I believe it was January 16th of 2016. CNBC News. Don't trust me? Look it up. The article exists. The quote is there. And so I want you to understand, why is Joe Biden doing with that understood, knowing that the Iran nuclear deal creates more terrorism? And we know for a fact that Joe Biden is in the middle of a deal to spend $6 billion of your money, $6 billion of your tax dollars, to buy 5 Americans that are held illegally in jail in Iran and to get the Iran nuclear deal. So, and this is what I think you're talking about here, Mike Bowie, to be very direct. Joe Biden is he's doing a pay for play. He is giving Iran $6 billion with the promise to lift sanctions and to give them more money for global terror if they sign the Iran nuclear deal. And to make it look like he is not paying off Iran, to make it look like he's not giving Iran a bribe, he's asking for 5 American citizens. Of the dozen that are being held in Iran, he's asking for 5. So that he can say, look, I got 5 Americans back home. It only cost us $6 billion. $1.2 billion per person. But I'm not paying for prisoners, even though he just paid for prisoners. Even though he's buying off Iran to get the nuclear deal, which is pay for politics. It's political influence. It's illegal. But that's besides the point. He wants you to just know that everything's okay. This is the same man that traded Victor Bout, the most criminal arms dealer in the history of the world, a man so notorious and so vile in committing genocide around the world, they made a movie about him. It's called The Lord of War with Nicolas Cage. Good movie, by the way. I saw it. I've seen it when it first came out. I recommend. Go ahead, watch it. It's history. It is telling you the history of Europe. It's telling you the history of Africa and the warlords and the genocide that is going on in Africa. Why is this being allowed to happen? And Joe Biden had the man responsible for genociding children in Africa, and he let that man go free to get a lesbian basketball player back to America after she admitted committing a crime. That's Brittany Griner. She's a criminal. She admits she was transporting drugs internationally, knowingly breaking the law And she thought being black, a lesbian, and an American was more important than the law of other countries. She was wrong. She got arrested. She got convicted because she's a criminal, because she committed the crime. And being black, a lesbian, and American don't mean jack in any other country in the world. Those are important issues. That will not protect you. But because she was black, a lesbian, and a criminal, but also in entertainment, and she's a Democrat, she was a progressive, because she had those extra elements, she got to come home, and the Lord of War was released. And within a week of him being released, Africa started having more conflicts, more generals fighting other generals, more warlords fighting. Global peace was destroyed. And the Biden administration is about to do it again. The Biden administration is about to do it again. Belen, thank you for joining us, Belen. I always am happy to have you here on the program. Belen is mentioning something about Brittany. I don't care about Brittany's sexual preference or ideology or identification. Could care less. Brittany Griner is Brittany Griner. As far as I know, Brittany Griner is a lesbian, and I don't care. I point that out because that is the politics that is being used to identify Brittany Griner and to justify a deal that should never have been made. But it tells you about the Biden-Harris administration. They are willing to do things that look like they're important. They are willing to do things that look like they have compassion and they care. When you look at the details, you realize, no, they're actually hurting people. They're getting votes. Bringing Brittany Griner home helped Joe Biden in the midterms and Democrats in the midterms to get votes because they're on the side of black lesbians. They're on the side of women. Okay, except how many more women died because Victor Bout is now free and selling weapons to warlords in Africa? How many women and children died? Because you got one lesbian back home who's a admitted criminal. You got one, and how many people died because of that? News media does not want you to think about that. They do not want you to talk about that. You are not supposed to have that conversation. You're supposed to vote Democrat. And if you say this, well, you must be evil. You must hate gay people. No, I don't. You must hate black women. No, I don't. You must hate the WNBA. I'm not a fan. Then again, no one is. No one watches it. No one cares. You couldn't tell me the name of the team that Brittany Griner is on without looking it up on Google first. No one knows. No one cares. So, but that's not important. And that's the thing, folks. They're playing the game with you. You have to shut up. You can't think about it. Think about it, folks. Bringing Brittany Griner home increased the amount of women and children in the world that died violently. She wasn't worth the trade. That was not the trade we should have made. And he's about to do it 5 more times. He's about to make that same kind of deal in Iran. And he's going to say, I'm increasing the global peace. Look, we got the Iran nuclear deal. That creates terrorism. That pays for terrorism. We are buying Americans out of prisons, which is a bad policy to start with, because everyone will just load up on the Americans that they have so that they can get paid. And he's doing it to make it look like it's politically, to look good politically for the 2024 election. In the meantime, the media won't tell you, okay, and here's the consequence of that. Iran now has $6 billion more to pump into global terror. They are the biggest sponsor of global terror in the world. And they just got cash infusions of $6 billion to kill Americans and Israelis. Because on the day that during the Obama-Biden administration, on the day that the Iran nuclear deal was signed, as it was being signed, the Ayatollah of Iran was on Iranian TV screaming, "Kill, death to America, death to Israel." He literally, that is not a if, that is not a guess, that is not a supposition, that is a fact. He was on Iranian national TV shouting to the crowds, to the masses who were repeating his words, "Death to America, the big devil, death to Israel, the little devil." That's what he said on the day we were signing a deal to promote peace, to make people safe. Yeah, they have a different plan. And the same thing's happening here. Mike Bowie mentions that he saw the movie Lord of War with Nicolas Cage. He thought it was just a kind of sci-fi adventure film. No, it's real. It's not quite an autobiography. They Hollywood it a bit. So they make it a little more dramatic. But it's based on the true life story of Victor Bout. This is his life story with a little bit of extra flash for Hollywood. But it's real. It's real. This is who that man was. This is what he did. And most people don't realize. They think, oh, it was just a movie. No. This is the man that we traded Brittany Griner for. And that we're about to do 6 more trades exactly like that. We're going to increase the amount of terrorism in the world. We're going to get 5 soldiers, and Joe Biden will get a bunch of votes. Because he's done a great job in the Middle East. That's what they're going to tell you. And you're not supposed to think about it. Don't think about it. Just don't think about it. The headline said he did a great job. The headline from the left-leaning news media will say, "World peace is better today than ever before." These are the same people that are telling you there is no inflation. Inflation is down. Yeah. Don't mind the fact that when you go to the store, you're still paying 12, 13, 14% more for food. Don't think about that. You're still paying more for gas today than you did in 2021. There's less food in the world today than there was in 2021. Electricity is more expensive today than it was in 2021. I don't even have to go back before that. Just in the last 18 months, everything's more expensive. Everything is more scarce. But everything's great. Inflation is down. The economy is doing great. Bidenomics. Bidenomics. Really? I mean, seriously, look at your bills. Tell me that you think it's working. Because according to the data that I can find everywhere, it's not working for anyone. But this is the lie they tell you to make you feel like things are going well so they maintain power, which is exactly what's happening in Southeast Asia right now. And that's why we want to make sure you know this. Because the thing that Joe Biden is really fighting against, he's not fighting against China. He's not fighting against North Korea. He's fighting against the Republican nominees for the 2024 election. That's who he's fighting against. That's who he's trying to get agreements against. Look at this. He's worried about, yes, Trump at 55%. Yes, he's worried a little bit about DeSantis and Ramaswamy. He's worried about these people. He's not worried about North Korea. He doesn't care about Taiwan. He doesn't care any more about Taiwan than he cares about Maui than he does about people in Afghanistan or the Sudan. He doesn't care. He doesn't have empathy. And that's one of the reasons why when we look at the general election projections, and you can see it right here, what do they got? Trump and Biden, 44-44. And you may say, well, Mike, that's just one poll. No. If you go, and this is real clear politics, this is the aggregate of all the polls that are done out there. And what do we see? 44-44. But if you go back in time, 3 points, +1, +2, +1, +1, +3, +4. No one in this race, going back, you have to go back, where is it? over a month ago, they're even. Democrats are terrified. Joe Biden is terrified. He is the man sitting in the White House who is responsible for, supposedly, the great economy of Bidenomics. He's the peacemaker, supposedly, around the world. He's improving people's lives everywhere. And he's running dead even with a guy that we are told is the devil. Think about that for a second, folks. Joe Biden, amongst all the different polls in America, is running dead even and has been running dead even for quite some time. He has no significant, this is all within the margin of error. He is running dead even with a man that the mainstream media has been spending the last 6, maybe 7 years telling us is the devil. Literally. They have literally said that Trump is the devil, that he is the most evil thing you could possibly be. He is MAGA, he is he's Trump. And that means evil. Evil incarnate. He's guilty of everything and anything that they could possibly think of. And Joe Biden's running even with him. That tells you how bad Biden is doing. How badly the American people are looking at this. How badly the world is looking at Joe Biden. That the guy, that we were told, this is what we were told. Nobody respected President Trump, yet there were no new wars under President Trump. The terrorists around the world minimized their actions under President Trump. He was having negotiations with the Middle East, North Korea, and Russia, trying to create more peace deals. And he was successful in the Middle East in particular, and started to have some impact in North Korea. And we're told that man is a devil, but the guy who replaced him, who started new wars, who abandoned 30,000 Americans and counting around the world, the guy who is looking to fund global terror, he's the good guy. Does that make sense to anybody? And this is why the rest of the world, who are not obsessed with the 2024 presidential election, they don't care. They're looking at this and going, look at the propaganda. Look at these guys abandon us, all of our allies. None of them trust us. That's what the news media is saying, because Joe Biden is concerned about an election. He doesn't care about anything or anyone else. That's just the reality of it. I wish it weren't true. I wish it didn't have to be true, but it is. I mean, again, we do know there are people who are upset. When you go to Politico, you look at this. There is a backlash to Biden's Iran deal. There are people who are upset about this, but we're told, well, they're just Republicans. It's just political. It's just about the election. That's what Biden's doing. It's about the election for Biden, too. And more importantly, if we look at the deal, it's a bad deal. Here it is. Opponents contend that giving the ruling clerics a financial lifeline boosts Tehran, the capital of Iran, while it's weak. Kylie Moore Gilbert, a British-Australian academic held in Iran for more than 800 days, recently said that the funds that the Iran nuclear deal will incentivize Tehran to take more Westerners. They're going to spend $6 billion, and the terrorists will go on a hunting spree for Americans and other allies of America. That they are going to create more danger. But we're the bad guys for mentioning it. This is crazy. We're the crazy bad guys for telling you to be prepared, to be aware that this is not going to work, because it has never worked in the past. But I'm the bad guy. I'm the bad guy for telling you about what has happened and what academics around the world are telling you. But I'm not supposed to be talking about that. You know what's the news we're supposed to talk about? We're supposed to talk about Ukraine, and I'm supposed to be the approved message is that I'm supposed to say, Ukraine, yay, Ukraine, win, Ukraine gets F-16s. End of story. That's all I have to say. That's the message that I'm supposed to be pushing to you. I'm supposed to tell you that we need F-16s in the Ukraine, that we need to spend billions upon billions more in the Ukraine for unknown, uncounted years to come. That's what we're supposed to be doing. That's what the message is. That's the approved message. Ukraine is good. The Ukraine war, the proxy war for the United States, is good. And we need to spend as much as possible on this war. We have to give them every weapon we have. We ran out of old weapons. We're making brand new weapons, weapon systems, to bring to the Ukraine. The Ukraine is getting F-16s. Now, if you look at the story, what you're going to hear is, well, those are F-16s. They're coming from other countries. They're coming from the Netherlands. I believe the story tells it. They're coming from the Netherlands and allies of the United States. No, they're not. No, they're not coming from allies of the United States. They're coming from the United States itself. I believe the article is... Bingo. No. Where is it? This is being approved. So the Netherlands is giving them... There it is. Netherlands and Denmark will provide the Ukraine with F-16s. They're only able to do that because the United States government already said do it. Do it. I have this article here. I'm looking for it right now. Give me a second. Oh, here it is. Come on, stop. Waiting for it to load up here. While it's going to load up. Come on. There we go. So, there it goes. So, looking at the story. Come on. Ukrainian pilots begin training on F-16 fighter jets days after the U.S. aircraft is approved. Okay. The United States government approved that the F-16s will be given to the Ukraine. We're using NATO to do something that Joe Biden couldn't do on his own. Because the United States is not allowed to give F-16s, the Abrams and the M1 tanks to Ukraine directly, he's doing it through NATO. He's giving it to them through NATO. What this is a trap. This is exactly how we got into Vietnam. This is how we got into Afghanistan. This is a problem. So, Jan says, it's the same with what's going on in Taiwan and China. Lots of media blackout. It's sad that Americans have to go through... Oh, wait a minute. I'm missing stories. Hang on. I'm catching up on the news. I'm a little bit behind, folks. Let me catch up. Nope, I did. So, I want you to understand the environment that we are in. We are endlessly spending hundreds of billions of dollars to fight a war that we are never going to get paid back. The Ukraine doesn't have the economy. It doesn't have the strategic anything to pay us back. We will never get this money back. That's a fact. The Ukrainian government is corrupt. It was corrupt before the war. It is going to be corrupt after the war. It is a corrupt government. It is better than Russia, no doubt. But let's be honest with each other. It is corrupt. That is an absolute fact. They're not good guys. They're better than Russia. They're not good guys. That's not a bastion of democracy that we are trying to save. Not even close. We just don't like Russia more than we don't like Ukraine. And so we're spending all this money. We're giving them the F-16s that they one day will use against us. We're giving them the M1 tanks that one day they will use against us. That they don't know how to use. They're teaching Literally, they are just now. We just approved the F-16s, and they are going out and they're being trained right now. Do you know how long it takes to train an Air Force pilot? How many months it takes to train them? And that's just to fly the plane. Imagine how much longer we have to train them to be a combat fighter, a successful combat fighter. It's kind of like when we gave them the tanks. And what happened? In 20 minutes in the first battle, they lost 5% of all the tanks and heavy vehicles that we had given them. 20 minutes in the first battle. They lost 5%. Why? Just because you said, we trained them, yeah, you turned them how to turn it on and how to drive forward. That's about all. And that means we need to put more advisors into the Ukraine to be able to teach them how to actually use the weapons and how to maintain and fix the weapons and to be able to use it under battle conditions. This is what we did literally what we did in Vietnam. This is what we did in Korea. This is how we got into those wars. We had to send in advisors. We had to train people to use the weapons that we had created. And our troops got under fire. So then we had to protect our troops who were under fire, who were there to advise the other guys. And so on and so on. The dominoes keep falling and we're involved in a war. We have been slowly but steadily getting to a point that we're going to have American troops on the ground. Not just NATO troops, because that's what we're doing now. We're using NATO, which is 80% the United States anyway, but we're using NATO to be able to put troops closer and closer and into the Ukraine to do something that we can't do with American troops yet. But we will. This is a 10-year war. We're in year 3 of 10 years. I guarantee you it's going to happen. And if anyone disagrees with me, I'm happy to hear why. If you think the Ukraine war is going to be over before the end of 10 years, tell me why. Because those are the same people who say, no, we won't be fighting in Ukraine for 10 years, are the same people who told us this will be over in a month. This will be over in 6 months. This is going to be a short war. Ukraine is winning. They are winning every single battle that they have been in. Yeah, if they're winning every battle, if this was going to be so short, why is it still going on? Why is there no definitive winner? Why is it that Russia still has plenty of troops? Yeah, this is a decade-long war, and we're getting in the middle of it. It's our Vietnam. It is the Vietnam for the next generation. And I'm really concerned about it. And you're not supposed to think about it. You're just supposed to think, hey, nice to have nice pictures. That's it. Look, it's a happy picture. And they're going to get historic. It's historic. It's so great. No, it's not. You're being lied to. You're being manipulated. I don't care if you... Do I think that the Ukraine is better than Russia? Yes. They're still corrupt. They're still not good guys. We still don't need to be in this war. We will never get this money back. We will never get the resources back. We are never going to improve our position in the world with this war. By the way, how much money have we sent into the Ukraine? Nobody knows. The numbers keep going up. We have seen people who have said, well, we sent them $40 billion, $113 billion. We've sent them $76 billion. It depends on how you're counting. The numbers change. Are you talking about financial aid? Are you talking about tanks and weapons? Are you talking about humanitarian aid? There's money that's coming from dozens of different departments. The numbers are constantly changing. Constantly changing. But we can easily say we have spent over $100 billion and counting. And most recently, the United States has been spending, we just sent another $200 million to the Ukraine at the same time that we gave $700 per household to Maui. We are giving more money to the Ukraine to fight a war where Americans aren't involved. It's not our war. It has no connection to America other than the Americans that were abandoned in the Ukraine. This is an entirely different war with different politics. It has nothing to do with America, and we are sending them more money than we are spending on disaster relief for an ongoing state of emergency of American citizens. That is a fact. And by the way, I'm not alone in saying that I'm upset about this, because when you look at the polls, the most recent one being August 4th, and CNN, the left, this isn't a right-leaning poll, this is from CNN, the left, and their poll tells you that the majority of Americans do not want to spend more money in the Ukraine. 51% of Americans. It's right here. Correction. 55% of overall say that the U.S. Congress should not authorize additional funding for the war to support the Ukraine. That's 55%. Do not send them more. That's the majority of Americans. I'm not the only one saying this. You're not the only one saying this. We have no benefit. There is no return from us. This is coming from CNN. This is the left that is telling you this. It's not a right-wing MAGA anything. This is from the left. These are from the crazy people over in Antifa. They're the ones telling you this. Think about it, folks. These are the important factors. We don't want to spend more money here, especially when we should be spending the money on Americans in Maui. Americans that are starving. We could be spending, imagine how many people we could help with $120 billion or more that we have spent right now. How many people could we have fed? How many poor people could have gotten food? How many people could have got clothing? How many of the homeless could be saved? And we'd still have money left over. We could feed every child in America. We could provide housing for every American that is homeless, and we would have money left over. That's how much money we have spent on Ukraine, and how little we are spending on it for our fellow Americans. And Americans have noticed this. But we have the problem about Maui. So let's stop talking about overseas. Let's focus on, and I think you can see how the international is affecting the United States. But let's focus on the United States itself. Let's talk about Maui, okay? And 1 second, let me type this in. Now, I'm going to talk about Maui, but I also want to mention that if this is the first time that you are seeing our channel, there we go. I hope that you've been enjoying this. I hope you found it to be informative and intellectually stimulating. And if it has been, please like, share, subscribe. That's all we ask for. Like, share, and subscribe. Allow more people to have a conversation. You can type in, like Ghost did at the very beginning of the program. You can type in, let us know. You can be like Bellin or Mike Bowie or Jan Rains. You can call in and, well, when we have our phone lines on, you can call in, or at any time you can always type in and tell us what you think about these issues and what is important to you. This is important. And we hope that you will help support us about this so that we can reach more and more people. Now, of course, if you want, you can help us by also making donations. You can donate $1.50 a month, $1.50. We're talking about less than 1 cup of coffee a month, and you're helping us keep our lights on and to turn on our phones so that you can call in every Sunday to talk on this program. We'd be happy to have that. Or you can make a one-time donation to PayPal, and that would help us as well. That's your choice. You don't have to do that. The only thing we ask you for, give us a like, a share, and subscribe. That's all we ask for. Everything else, it's up to you. Because we understand it's a recession. We've been telling you it's a recession. since 2022. We understand completely. Money's tight, so we appreciate if you can help us. And if you can't, no problem. Just like, share, and subscribe. So with that said, what's going on in Maui? Well, to understand what's happening in Maui, you have to understand what happened. It's the same thing as California. The very simple thing is the eco-fanatics come in. They tell us there are animals like a spotted owl. You can't tear down those trees. We're told by these climate change activists, you can't burn down any part of the forest. You can't change the forest. You have to just let it be. Leave nature alone. Fantastic. And in California, under Gavin Newsom, you will see that they'll say, okay, we're going to just let it grow. Except what that means is when a fire starts, and a fire always starts. Not because it's man-made, not because human beings are evil, not because of global warming. It's called a lightning storm. It happens. That is natural. It has always been natural. That's why every single year that I have been alive, and I'm 55, there has been a wildfire in California. Every year. There is a fire in Canada every year for half a century. Sometimes they're bigger, sometimes they're smaller, but there is always a fire in California and in the Northwest in Canada every single year. That is a fact. Because you have a bunch of trees, some of them are dead, you have a bunch of dead leaves, and they catch fire. It happens every year. Some of the grass is going to be dry. It's going to catch fire. It happens every year. The thing that's important is we sometimes should be, and conservation says that we go in and we clear out some of the dead trees. We clear out some of the dead grass. We go and do a controlled burn. And yes, that might make some owls move. But owls are going to die in a forest fire anyway. Better to have them move than to let them die in a forest fire that's going to kill them and every other animal in the forest, including human beings. It's just that simple. But as we see, what's the first step? You ban the logging, because logging helps to get rid of some of the dead trees. And you have to clear the roads. You have to clear the underbrush, which creates a break in the fire lines, which controls the forest fires. 2, leave the land unmanaged and call it conservation. Eco-fanatics, you can't remove the trees. You can't change anything. Leave it alone. Nature will take care of itself. Well, nature is taking care of itself. It's called the forest fire. That's nature taking care of it itself. Step 3, let wildfires destroy everything, then collect millions in federal disaster aid. And then we blame the climate. It's climate change that caused this. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's been happening every year for 55 years that I've been alive. You can't tell me it's climate change. The climate didn't change. It's the same thing that's been happening for centuries. Centuries. This isn't new. It happens every year. What isn't new is the degree of the fire. Because for decades, we were smart enough to say, hey, let's burn down part of we're going to make a fire break. Which means you set fire to part of the forest closest to human beings so that the fire will not go crazy and burn down entire towns and endanger human lives and destroy the entire forest. It only destroys parts of it. That's all this is. This could be resolved very simply. Same thing applies to Maui as it does to California, as it does to Canada. It is the same root problem. It's not that there's a fire. Come on, let's think about this. Maui is an island. It is a volcanic island. Like all the Hawaiian Islands, that's based on volcanoes. They have fires. It happens. It's not usually as bad as like in California, but it happens. This isn't new. But why is it so bad? Because the Hawaiian Electric knew that this was going to be a problem. They knew that they could take care of this, and they decided not to. Let me show you what I mean. Where is it? There it is. They knew this was going to happen. Not because of climate change. This is from the Wall Street Journal. Hawaiian Electric knew of the wildfire threat, but waited years. Why did they do that? Why did they wait for this? Because of the eco-fanatics, because of the far left. Because let the wildfires destroy everything and then collect millions in federal aid. They knew what they were doing. They just left it alone. Because the left said, hey, you can't do that. The owls, the lizards, the caterpillars, you might affect something. Well, they're being affected now. But now instead what you are hearing is it's the evil corporation. Hawaiian Electric was evil. They were the evil bad guys. And they knew this could happen. They just let people die. They wanted people to die so that the Hawaiian government could come in and buy all the property. First of all, we don't know that this is man-made. Might be, might not be. Because weather happens. And whether it's lightning strike or a little bit of lava, it could be a lot of reasons why the forest fire started. The reason why the forest fire is as bad as it is because of politics, left-leaning progressive politics that said, don't clean up the forest. And Hawaiian Electric knew it. Now, mind you, I'm not telling you that I think Hawaiian Electric is the greatest company in the world. Not. I'm not doing a financial analysis of Hawaiian Electric. I can do that. I used to be a stockbroker. I can do a financial analysis of them and tell you whether or not they're a good company in terms of finances. But that's not what we're talking about now, is it? No, they're saying they're the bad guys because they did what the left told them to do. And because they did what the left told them to do and paid them, they got paid by the left, by the eco-fanatics to not destroy, not to burn down or control the forest. And because they did that, the threat to human beings increased. Thus, we have the forest fires in Maui today. That's what happened. Jen says, why was water turned off so fire departments and people couldn't fight there? Why were their alarms not set off? Why were the children not in school that day? There are a lot of questions about how that happened and why that happened. Partially because it's summer, partially because of vacations, partially because of mismanagement at the local, state, and federal level, partially because of the business that is greedy. You have all of these things happening at once. I don't think it's any one of those factors. It is the combination of those factors over time, plus a couple of lucky events. Why weren't kids in school? Well, vacation. School vacations. But so you put all of those things together at once, and it looks like this big conspiracy, but it's just the natural outcome of several really bad decisions. Those decisions were made because of politics. They were made because of greed. And that leads to the state of emergency, the disaster that we see happening right now on Maui. And that's the same thing that we see happening in California and that we see happening in Canada. So every time we see this repeat, we see people pandering to the political agenda, they get paid for it, it hits critical mass, and then everyone gets screwed over, and it hurts more people than the original threat was because we've magnified it. And that is what we see consistently. Jan says, There are too many questions regarding this incident, among them wanting to make this city a 15-minute city, and locals have been saying government have been trying to buy up land. They have. As we've covered on this program before, there is a massive movement towards 15-minute cities, which we think is horrible. By the way, if you haven't seen our video on that, please do check it out. 15-minute cities. It is a horrendous idea. I don't doubt that Hawaii's trying to buy up the land and have been trying to buy up the land for decades because they want to take it away from the indigenous families that have owned it since history been recorded in Hawaii. And they want to take that land. I understand that because it's valuable land. And I understand that even if the start of this fire was intentional, which we don't know if it was or was not, the conditions that made it the event that it is right now were built up over decades. They were built up over progressive policies that allowed this to occur. This was always in the making, whether it's natural or not, whether the government, local government of Hawaii, is taking advantage of the people or not. Remember, they take advantage of every crisis. Never let a crisis go to waste. They're taking advantage of the problem that has, or rather what the problem has provided to them. This is the excuse to take advantage of it. Whether it was intentional or not, doesn't matter. The cause was always the same, the progressive policies. The outcome is always the same. The government's going to step in and take advantage of the people. Those things don't change whether it's intentional or not. Therefore, I don't care if it was intentional or not. I just want to explain myself. I don't care if it's intentional or not because how it started and what the government's going to do about it didn't change. And that it's being used as a political tool hasn't changed. And that's what upsets me. Now, Jan does say, but Voss, we know the news isn't always truthful. What if these fires are purposefully being set in order for the government to buy up land in order to make that 15-minute city? Doesn't change anything. Because the root problem started before the 15-minute cities. It started before this current cycle of news, before this administration was in. It started decades ago. It's the progressive ideology about conservation, about eco-fanaticism, about global warming. This is what caused the problem in Maui. It's been long term. And everything else now is just taking advantage of the problem that they have allowed to grow to this level. Same thing in California, same thing in Canada. That's why I'm upset about it. Hey, user has been banned. Good to see you here. User has been banned jumps in and says, don't land developers set fires to get land like in the Pine Barrens? Kind of. Again, what you're looking at is people will take advantage of the consequences of an event that took decades to take place. The fires that we see, wherever they're taking place, didn't happen just because of that day. Whether it's a man-made fire or a natural event, doesn't matter. The reason why the fires are that extreme is because of the lack of care and concern, because someone was adhering to progressive politics and climate change rather than nature itself, rather than just taking care of the problem before it got bigger. So that's why I don't care whether it was planned or not. The outcome is always going to be the same, because as soon as the disaster happened, the vultures are going to come in and pick the body clean. And that's what they're doing now in Maui, and that's what they've done in the Pine Barrens and other areas across America. And that's the problem. We need to recognize that. Because it's easy to just point at, oh, but it's Hawaiian Electric, they're evil people. Oh, it's just the land developers, they're evil people. They're just the bad guys. And that's the excuse. So that we stop thinking about this and stop thinking about what caused this. We're looking at, look at what they're doing now that it happened. How did it happen? Who caused it to happen? It was about political propaganda. It was about promoting a political agenda and ideology. That's why you had the problem in the first place. And if you want to prevent that problem, it's not attack the land developers. It's not attack the energy company like Hawaiian Electric. They're not, at the end of the day, they're taking advantage of the situation. The situation happened because of something else. The root cause isn't those guys and their greed. They're just the end result of a chain of events. And we need to look at it in that way so that we can prevent it from happening in the future. Because there will always be another Hawaiian Electric. There will always be another land developer. There will always be another local government that is trying to take land and property away from the American people for their own purposes, whether good or bad or whatever they call it, doesn't matter. There's always that going to happen as a consequence to the root cause, which is the political propaganda that created this, the climate change movement. So that's my problem. Now, I understand everyone else is very upset about the consequence. Well, these guys are taking advantage after the fact, and they're bad guys. Maybe they even started it. Maybe. But that's not my problem. Because it wouldn't, if everything else was being taken care of in the first place, it would never be this bad. The consequence could never be this bad if we were taking care of it all the way along. If we weren't playing propaganda politics with the climatologists, if we weren't playing that game 2 decades ago, you wouldn't have the problem today. They could never do what they're doing. The people who are profiting could never profit in the manner that they are if we had been taking care of this problem 2 decades ago. So I'm calling out the problem for what it is and not what the easy target is. The easy target is to say, well, it's just those evil land developers. It's the evil energy company, Hawaii Electric. They're the easy target. The local government, they're the easy targets. They're not ultimately the big problem. The problem was the climate change activism, the progressive policies that were put in place that created the problem that we're living through now. And that's where I'm upset. Does that make sense to people? Does my reasoning make sense? I'm not saying that people have to agree with it, but does it make sense? Because I think it does. And I think that when we look at it from that point of view, we understand how much of a problem there is and how big the problem is, not just in Maui, not just in California or in Canada. That this problem is widespread across America and in many other countries. You can go into South America and have the same kind of conversation. You can have the same kind of conversation in the woodlands in Germany. You can go into many parts of Southeast Asia. You're going to have these same problems. That people are adopting a political agenda that is counterproductive over time to themselves. They are magnifying the problem, all in the name of, but we will help. We need a 15-minute city because that will help you, because we're going to transform you into a slave. We're going to give you a 15-minute jail cell. That's what those are. 15-minute cities are 15-minute jail cells. You have a cell, 15 minutes. That's your size of your cell. It's a very nice gilded cage. But that's someone taking advantage of the outcome, of the consequence of a decade or 2 decades of this progressive propaganda based on climate. Users have been banned says, yeah, we're the eco-fascists years ago, screaming, leave the forest alone, speaking about thinning out the forest. That's right. Every time they wanted to thin the forest, a decade ago, 2 decades ago. Oh, no, you can't do that. You can't thin the forest. Don't do any fire measures. How dare you? And this is the result. They are the root problem because they didn't have the foresight to go, and what happens when there's a forest fire? because there is always a forest fire. There will always be a forest fire. That's going to happen. If there is a forest, there will be a forest fire. How bad that forest fire is a different question. We can make it less dangerous. We can make it less state of emergency for an entire state or an entire portion of a continent. We can have it be less dangerous. And then they turn around and go, but it's climate change. No, it's called pollution. Yeah, you have a lot more smoke. It's going to make the temperature cooler because you're going to get less sunlight. That's the problem. It's not that climate is changing. Same thing happens every time there's a volcano that erupts. But those are temporary things. And again, if they were thinning out the forest, we wouldn't have that problem, wouldn't be as severe as it is today. User has been banned says it's not just about the fires either. The centuries-old practice was done to preserve landslides too. Well, yeah, there's landslide. It is this policy of eco-fanaticism that affects every aspect of our lives. But the things that get people's attention, you can say landslides, no one's going to pay attention. No one has the same, no one thinks of a town being wiped out by a landslide. But a forest fire or a fire, they'll think of it that way. It's just the way people think. And that's why these stories propagate the way they do. And they distract people the way they do. But I think it's also important to understand how bad is the reaction by the United States government. That the Biden-Harris administration, we know for a fact that Biden right now, according to NBC News, this is NBC News, August 10th, 10 days ago, Joe Biden is trying to get $40 billion, according to NBC News, $40 billion. And by the way, NBC News is lying to you. They're actually doing $23 billion. See, they put it right here. So the headline says nearly $40 billion. $24 billion is not nearly $40 billion. I don't know why NBC is sensationalizing this. I guess because they think that unlike the Americans that were polled by CNN who said stop spending money in Ukraine, NBC thinks that their audience is happy to see all this money spent in Ukraine, so they have to pump up the numbers. The number is 24, but they decided to pump it up to 40 to lie because it makes a better headline for their audience, I guess. Just something to point out. Something for you to notice about the deception that's going on in the news media. He asked for $24 billion. Their headline says $40 billion. They think you're dumb. They think you can't read 15 seconds into the article. 15 seconds. It'll take you 5 seconds to read the title and then to read the second bullet point. They think you're dumb. They think you're too lazy to read not even 2 paragraphs. Okay. What is it? 5 sentences? Not even 5 sentences. They just think you're too lazy to do that. I don't, but that's what CNBC does. So CNBC, we know Biden is trying to get $24 billion for the Ukrainians, not for Americans, for Ukrainians, so he can spend it on them. That is a fact. He wants to give $700 per household to people in Maui. Again, this comes from, and this is from Newsweek, comparing Hawaii's aid to the Ukraine, okay? Where we have and they're saying, well, it's only $200 million versus $700 per household. I actually went through. Did you know the cost of living for a family in Maui, $7,203 per month? Joe Biden, again, it costs $7,200 for a family to live in Maui. Joe Biden is giving them $700 per household. That means mom, dad, and the kids, the dog, they're all put together. That's $700. That's it. Not per person, for the entire household, no matter how many people are in that household. If you have 2 kids and a wife and a husband and a dog, you're only getting $700. If you are by yourself, you get $700. So they're treating families worse than they're treating anyone else. And I got to say that again. The policy by the Biden-Harris administration is so insensitive, it is so cruel, that it is treating families on the same level that it treats an individual. I am a single man. Let's make it very clear. I'm a single man. I don't eat as much food as a family of 3 or 4 or 5. I don't use as much electricity. I don't take up as much space. I don't have as many requirements as a family of 3 or 4 or 5. But I am getting, if I am in Maui right now, I get the same amount of money as a family of 5 or 6 or 7. Think about that for a second. A family of 6 gets the same amount of money as a single person. A family in their 40s versus a kid in his 20s are getting the same kind of money. $700. Because Joe Biden is not compassionate. Because Kamala Harris is not compassionate. These are the people who want you to forget about the East Palestine, Ohio disaster, that they didn't know what to do then either. These are the same people. The same people who screwed up the southern border. These are the same people who abandoned 30,000 Americans around the world. And now they're in Maui and they're saying, you get $700. They're giving $40 billion. Excuse me. Sorry, that was NBC News. That was their headline. $24 billion is being given to the Ukraine, where there aren't American citizens. That's not our war. That's not our country. We're never going to get the money back. And he's giving them $24 billion on top of the $120 billion we have already spent in just the first year. And he's giving them even more. And he's going to give them even more money than that within a month. But he's going to give families $700 and treat a family of 6 the same way he would treat a single person. That is evil. Think about it. That, I believe, is evil. You could have a mom and a dad who are in their 30s. They have 2 kids. Maybe a kid who's 5 or 6 or 7 and another kid that's a brand new baby. And they're going to get the same treatment as a single 20-year-old. That doesn't make sense. And let me try, and again, I want to show you the numbers here. It costs $7,000 for a family of 4 to live in Maui. $7,000. A single person, it costs $4,000 for a single person to live in Maui. That's per month. Per month. And Joe Biden is treating them as if they're the same thing. Think about this. Now, you could look at the food, which is like $30 per meal. That's one way to look at it. You could say that $700, that doesn't, if you have this is really funny. If you are renting, it will cost you almost the exact same amount of money for a studio apartment, which is half the space. If you have a 480 square foot, which is tiny, a tiny studio apartment will cost you $2,100 in general in Hawaii. This is in Honolulu. In Maui. It will cost a family who have a 900 square foot apartment. It costs them $3,000. Let me say it again. $3,000 for a family. $2,100 for a single person. Joe Biden gave them $700. He's not even giving them 1 month. Think about that. Joe Biden doesn't even want to give them 1 month of rent. They just had their house burned down or their business burned down. They just had their local stores or schools. Their lives have just burned down. And Joe Biden didn't give them enough money to live 1 month with rent. It's even worse than that. Think about it. It's even worse than he didn't give them enough money to live 1 month without rent. No. The number that really got me, you just lived through a forest fire. Your house burned down. Everything you own burned up. I have seen fires. I've had neighbors who have lived through fires right in my neighborhood, right next door to my house. It's happened in California. It's happened in upstate New York. I've seen it in a few places where lightning struck a building, burned down an entire apartment complex. I've seen it happen a couple times. And people lose everything. They lose their home. They lose their car. They lose every piece of their clothing. Joe Biden gave them $700 for a household. It costs $75. Let me say it again. $75 for a pair of jeans. $75. This is assuming that there is no squeeze. This is assuming that everyone in Maui isn't trying to buy a new pair of jeans all at the same time. It costs $75 to get a pair of jeans because Maui is an island. Everything is imported. They have to import everything, and it costs a lot of money to either take a plane or a boat to bring over food, water, and clothing to Maui. That's a fact. That's why it costs $7,000 for a family to live on Maui. And you have $700. So let's see, mom, dad, and let's say 2 kids. That's $75. That's $300 to give them all 1 pair of jeans. That all of their clothes just burned up. They've got the clothes on their back. If they're lucky, they have a bag of clothing. If they're lucky, and as we know Jan has mentioned and many others have mentioned, there weren't warnings. There were no early warnings. People weren't being told on the news media. People didn't know that there was a fire coming. So most people didn't pack bags. They had the clothing on their back. And to get 1 extra set of clothing will cost them $700. And now they don't have any money, thanks to Joe Biden, for food or shelter or anything else. I call that evil. That's not just not understanding the circumstances. That's being detrimental. That's hurting people. This is as bad a mistake, as bad government as what happened with Hurricane Katrina and the Super Bowl. It's just as bad. This is evil. This is like having FEMA take 5 days to get people water. It's the same idea. Okay, you're going to give them $700. That gets them 1 set of clothing, and that's it. They're going to starve. So either I can wear the same exact clothes that I did when I escaped the fire, which may very well, if they're not dirty that second, they're going to be. And that's the only thing I have, and I can use the money to feed myself and my kids, or I can get a set of clothes, and then I can't feed anyone. Which one am I going to do? This is evil. And meanwhile, he's throwing money hand over fist to the Ukraine, where 55% of Americans don't want to give them more money. We've already given them money, weapons. We just gave them F-16s. Why are we giving them more? When we have people in Maui who desperately need more than just $700 per household. That is insensitive. That is evil. That is a honest reflection of how Joe Biden thinks about people. These are the same people that abandoned 30,000 Americans. They abandoned 5,000 Americans in 2021, 10,000 in 2022, 15,000 in 2023. That's not me making up the numbers. That's the facts. That's the internationally recorded, documented numbers. I didn't have to make it up. The world is reporting this. The Biden administration has admitted this. And so are you surprised that someone who would throw thousands of Americans into torture, literally having them tortured by ISIS and Al-Qaeda right now? You are sitting in your home, comfortable. You're out mowing the lawn. You're enjoying the summer and taking a week off for vacation, and Americans are being tortured right now. And your government, Joe Biden, is telling you, don't worry about it. Sunshine, rainbows, unicorns, don't think about it. And he's doing the same thing to people over in Maui right now. Let me catch up with the comments here. We have, user has been banned, says, maybe Joe Biden's thinking that this is $700 from the 1960s, that these are dollars that were worth more in the past. Like the 1960s, that would be worth about 3-4 times what us $700 would be worth today. Only if only. User has been banned, says, I've seen something nasty, some nasty videos on what's going on over in the Ukraine. It's just a losing war. It's always been a losing war. Not to say it's impossible for the Ukrainians to win. I mean, the Taliban beat the United States. So it can be done. Al-Qaeda beat the Russians. It can be done. I'm not saying that it can't. Ukraine could possibly win in a decade, possibly 2. It could happen. But they're going to be fighting for a very, very, very long time. And it's going to be evil, wicked, horrible fighting. That is a fact. I mean, that's what cluster bombs do. Cluster bombs are evil. There's a reason why 123 out of 147 countries in the world have said that cluster bombs are evil and they're not allowed. Geneva Conventions. And the United States is not one of those countries. We have broken the law and said, well, no, we're going to use cluster bombs. Yeah, it is very nasty over there. It's going to be very nasty. And we're going to be funding it all the way. We are involved at every single step. And yeah, that means we're going to have American citizens involved. Even as the American people, 55% of them, according to the left-leaning sites, are telling us, yep, people don't want it and we're going to do it anyway. I don't understand this. I do not understand this, folks. I do not find this to be a fair exchange. But you can just go to Newsweek or anyone else on the left and they'll tell you, it's a good thing. This is a great thing. Joe Biden's doing a fair job. He's doing as much as he can. No, he's not. No, he really, really isn't. Not even close. Doesn't even make sense. And it's not cheap to be there. It costs, the Hawaiian Islands are about $11,000 more expensive than being in New York City. New York City is one of the most expensive places in the entire United States. Forget about the world. In the entire United States, it is ridiculously overpriced. It's about 70% more expensive to be in New York City than pretty much anywhere else in the United States, except for Hawaii, which is more expensive than New York. Tells you how bad this is and how little $700 will do. How really insulting it is that he wants to do that. But, you know, when I think about that, the thing that really gets me, though, is when I think about what's happening there, not only is it insulting and dangerous, it's detrimental, it is harmful to Americans in Maui to only give them $700, knowing how much more expensive it is in Maui than anywhere else in America. On a good day, it is more expensive to be in Hawaii than it is to be anywhere else in America, and you're going to give them so little without any understanding of the cost, the consequence of that. It's just evil. That is evil. But it's also meant to be a distraction. We have heard for an entire week, the news media has been talking front line, dead center. Every major news media company is talking about the approved message of the Maui fires. They don't want to talk about the California fires. They stopped talking about the Canadian fires. They don't want to talk about the Iran deal. They don't want to talk about Ukraine as much. No, the number one story is that. You know what else they didn't want to tell you about? Hunter Biden. Think about it. Hunter Biden. They didn't want to. They want you to think, oh, well, Hunter Biden, it's all fair. It's okay. Because the prosecutor is a special prosecutor, and the deal is going to be great. We're going to make this work. The government already tried to make this go away. They tried to give him immunity. If it weren't for a judge paying attention to the details, he would have got immunity and walked away with a sweetheart deal. And now they're telling us, no, but they really want to make this serious. They're really trying. This is coming from CNN. So question the credibility all you want, because you should. But they're trying to tell us, look at this. You know, they've been trying, but we don't know. The government was going to roll over for Hunter Biden and give him immunity. Matter of fact, before it even got that far, they were going to roll over, and they weren't even going to charge him. They were just going to drop the case. The same case that there has been no additional evidence. They already have the evidence. They already knew what the crimes are. And the very same crimes that they are trying to punish him for now, that we're being told they're serious and hardcore about, the very same charges were the ones they said we were going to drop the case on. Just think about that for a second. They were going to drop the case altogether. And it was only until details became public, when whistleblowers became public and told the public that there is more than enough evidence at least to go to trial. If not to prove guilt, at least enough to go to trial and to present this to the American people as it should always have been done. There was more than enough evidence, and only when that evidence became public did the Biden administration decide to prosecute Hunter Biden. That's really, really telling. That's really upsetting. And I know a user has been banned says it's not just him, it's the whole family, and I don't doubt you. Yeah, the whole family has issues, no doubt. So does Kamala Harris. So do many of the politicians. Although the Biden administration, we're seeing the threads of their web more clearly than anyone else at the moment. It's not just isolated to them. But it's very scary. But we're so focused right now. We're supposed to be talking Maui, Maui, Maui. You're not supposed to pay attention to any other detail. You're not supposed to be thinking about anything else that is going on. You're not supposed to worry about how much extra money that we are giving to Ukraine. We're not supposed to think about the F-16s and what the consequence of that will be. We're not supposed to think about that. We're not supposed to consider the fact that Joe Biden is failing Southeast Asia, all of our allies, and that they are so desperate that they are making brand new deals trying to lock in the United States to protect them, even though they already have treaties that already say they're going to protect them. That they are that terrified that they are trying to do whatever it takes, including using politics to try and strong arm Biden into protecting them from China. We're not supposed to think about that. We're not supposed to notice that. We're not even supposed to talk about that. That is verboten. It's almost news that you almost can't hear about that story. You're not supposed to be talking about it. Talk about Maui, Maui, Maui. That's it. Maui. Aren't there evil corporations? Talk about the evil corporations in Maui. Don't think about how this all happened. Don't think about the consequences. Don't think about who started this and how we can prevent this in the future. No, it's evil corporations. That's it. The answer is evil corporations. Give up your land. Give it to the government. Let them micromanage your life. They're going to build a 15-minute city so you'll have a nice, pretty cage. Stop talking. Don't think. Don't talk about Joe Biden. Don't talk about Hunter Biden and the corruption that has been surrounding him for decades. No, we're not supposed to talk about that at all. Just let it all go. Just let it go. I find it very upsetting. I find it incredibly upsetting. And I think most people do. And what are one of the other stories, besides Hunter Biden, and the continuing demonization of anyone who brings up Hunter Biden? If you even talk about Hunter Biden, you're a bad guy, you're on a list. You're talking about an unapproved message. Hunter Biden is supposed to be done. We're not supposed to be talking about him ever again. Really? Okay. But the thing is, you're supposed to be talking, if you're talking politics at all, well, then it's Joe Biden is innocent, even though he has been caught with 4 decades of secret documentation. He broke the law for 4 decades, having classified documents in a garage next to his car. That's how secure it was. That is a crime. That is a series of 4 decades worth of crimes, which we're not supposed to talk about because Trump is evil. And everything is about Trump. Trump, 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 Trump. Trump jail. Trump guilty. That's the words. Those are the key words that every search engine in America is looking for. And wants you, as long as you say Trump guilty, then you're going to be raised up in the algorithm. The algorithm's going to be happy to hear you say Trump guilty. But if you're making Joe Biden guilty, if you mention Joe Biden crime family, if you mention Hunter Biden and anything else, then you're down, 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 down. Algorithm's going, oh, we got to get rid of that voice. He did say Trump guilty, but we got to get rid of him because he's saying, Biden guilty, Hunter is guilty. You're not supposed to do these things. You're not supposed to think about these things. You're not supposed to remember or talk about what Larry Elder was talking about. You're not supposed to think about what Larry Elder was thinking about. Before I get to this, because this is about race relations, this is about politics, this is about empathy, this is about the future of America in 2024 and beyond. This is important for you to understand because it's going to highlight how programmed Americans are at this moment. And I don't care if you're a Democrat or a progressive, libertarian, a conservative, or Republican. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your political beliefs are because this transcends all of that. And if there's anything that you should clip in this video, I believe this next conversation is something that should be clipped, that should be shared with people because it affects every one of our lives and it is an example of what we are seeing in every single aspect. That we are seeing this on multiple levels. This is how this same thing is happening to women. It's happening to Hispanics. It's happening to Asians. It is happening to every one of the DEI categories of equity that exist in America today. That you are being used and abused. And no one's supposed to talk about it. Hang on. Now people are going to say, Mike, what are you talking about? What did Larry Elder talk about? What is this? What is going on here? Let me be very clear. So, you may recall, I think you may recall, that back on May of 2020, so going back 3 years in time, which isn't that long ago, but the news media expect that you can't remember that. They are absolutely sure you can't remember what happened 3 years ago. You're supposed to forget. You're not supposed to think about it. It's old news, gone. You're not even supposed to have access to what happened 3 years ago, let alone 3 months ago. It's just gone. And it was literally 3 years ago that we were talking about what Larry Elder was talking about yesterday. Let me show you what I mean. Let's listen for a moment. And I have always been livid about this. I have always been upset about it. Not just when I was talking about it in April. You can go back over the 900 some odd videos I've done on this over the last decade. You can look at some of the thousands of articles I've written over the last decade. And I can tell you can hear consistently over and over again one of the key things that I'm constantly saying. Why is it that black people don't have a choice? Why do Democrats and progressives in particular seem to, I believe, that if you cannot be black if you have an independent thought, if you believe something that they don't agree with? Okay, I want to stop it there. 3 years ago, we asked a very simple question. Why is it that if you are black, you are punished for having an independent thought? Why is it if you're a woman, if you're gay, if you're Hispanic, if you're straight, if you're Asian, and you have an opinion that doesn't directly match up to the progressive, approved mainstream media message, you're the bad guy. You're the problem. You have to be punished. Why is that the case? And again, it doesn't matter whether you are on the left or the right. It doesn't matter what the issue is. If you do not only support the approved message, whatever it might be today, and I understand it changes on a regular basis. If you go by DEI, it's constantly changing. But whatever the approved message is, if you're not supporting that message 24/7, every single time they tell you what to say, you say yes. If you're not doing that, you're the bad guy. And you can look at everyone on the left and how many times do they eat their own and they're canceling their own. Remember Lizzo? Think about it. Lizzo was one of their champions, one of the great body positivity, champion of body positivity, which was raising her up. She's black and a woman and body positive. So she's almost at the top of the equity staircase until they found out that she's also a demonic boss, apparently, that she was abusing her employees sexually, apparently. And so she tumbled on down. They got rid of her. Suddenly, all of her body positivity, her blackness, her femaleness, all got thrown under a bus because she's no longer popular. And that's what the threat is to each of us. They do that to her to tell us, stay in line. And no matter how well you stay in line, no matter how much you do exactly what you are told, what has been approved for you, you are still never good enough. You will always fail. There will always be a reason to punish you on the equity scale, on the progressive mindset. There's always room to punish you because you are not good enough. Because progressives don't have enough control. Unless they are controlling every aspect of every moment of your life, You are guilty, you will fail, and you are the problem in every single case. Always. That being said, and we highlighted that back on May 2020. Why is it that if you are black, especially in America, if you're African American, if you're black, and you point out that there is a problem, well, you are the bad guy. You have done something wrong. And you know what? That's exactly what Larry Elder was talking about. Larry Elder was on The Breakfast Club. You know who else was on The Breakfast Club? Joe Biden. What did Joe Biden say on The Breakfast Club? You ain't black if you don't know if you're voting for Joe Biden. If you don't vote Democrat, then you can't be black. Because the white man, Joe Biden, who made the decision for black people, that he decided what is blackness. He decided how black someone is. And that's really insulting. And he said that to Charlamagne on BET's program, The Breakfast Club. So Joe Biden, a white man known for his questionable morality when it comes to other ethnicities, he's questionable at the least, at the best, I could say. And he comes on to this black channel, this black program, speaking to this black announcer, this host, and he tells him that, he tells Charlamagne he has no value, unless he obeys his betters, his masters in the Democratic Party.
Have you ever heard of the term?
Now, I'm going to play this. Is it? Can I get? No. Sorry, I was trying to look for text. So I'm going to play this, and I can't hear it myself. But I want you to hear something that's really, really interesting here. Listen to this.
Nigga wake up call?
No.
It is an incident where a person of color forgets that they are of color and are reminded rather brutally by an unexpected act of racism. Have you ever had any of those?
Oh, brother.
I'm just asking. You think you've ever
Well,
had
I'm acutely aware, Charlamagne, that I'm a black person, just as you are a black person. And when Joe Biden insulted you by saying, you ain't really black, we don't know whether or not you want to vote for me or vote for Donald Trump, it seems to me that should have been a wake-up call on your part. How dare this guy come in here and insult you, a black man, and tell you you got to think a certain kind of way? I'm amazed.
Okay, I want to stop it right there for a second. So, when we see this clip and we step into it, what's the first thing that we see? Charlamagne is trying to insult Larry Elder. Larry Elder is running for president of the United States. Larry Elder is running, I think he's at 0.1% of popularity. Doesn't matter. He is a legitimate, recognized, documented candidate for the presidency on 2024. He wants to be the Republican candidate. Fair and fine. He has that option. He's trying to make his voice heard. Okay. So respect him on that alone, that he's doing something most people would never even try to do. That he's actually stepping into the arena. He's trying to get elected at the highest level of government. Gotta love that. That takes balls. Besides money, it takes balls. So he's gone out there and he should get respect for that. But instead, Charlamagne goes on BET in the Breakfast Club, and he's trying to say that Larry Elder needs a wake-up call because he's black and he doesn't support Democrats. That is the subtext of the conversation that is going on that you are watching. The subtext is you need a wake-up call. Larry Elder needs a wake-up call. That Charlamagne is going to try and give Larry Elder a wake-up call because Larry Elder is a Republican, not a Democrat. That is the subtext. You need a wake-up call. You need a black people wake-up call. That's what Charlamagne is saying in a very lowbrow manner, which is insulting. That's the context that we just saw, that you just got to hear. And that's insulting. Because he's trying to insult Larry Elder, saying, you are so mistaken that someone needs to help you. That you have fallen so far away from reality, someone needs to try and bring you back in. Charlamagne does not recognize, like most in the mainstream news media, they do not recognize black Republicans, black conservatives. You can't be black and conservative. You can't be black and Republican without them saying, what's wrong with you? In every single major news media format, they always go, what's wrong with you? Why are you doing that? Something is strange. Something is wrong. Because they've made the decision for you that you must be a liberal Democrat. You have to be liberal Democrat. Why? Because you have melanin in your skin. And if you don't, there's a problem. That should be insulting in and of itself. Imagine that every single woman is told that you should be a milkman. You should be delivering milk or mail. You should be a mailman. Why? Because you're a woman. And how can you not be a mailman because you're a woman, or a male woman, whatever you want to call it? How can you not be delivering the mail every day? You're a woman. That's what women do. That's what women are expected to do. That's all that women can do. That's your choice. The choice has been made for you. You're going to deliver mail. And I can see every woman in America turn around and going and saying, are you out of your mind? How dare you tell me how to live my life? How dare you say I can't do something different? How dare you say that I don't have any choices on my life and how I live my life and what choices I want to make with my life? And every woman would be correct in saying that. Except no one says that about black people and their politics. No one says, how dare you not give me a choice, not respect that I have a choice. And if you do go off the reservation, if you do have the unapproved thought of being a Republican or conservative, hang on. It's the joy of being in New York City. Okay, so the police car was a little loud in my ear. I thought it would be loud for you guys. So no one ever says to black people, oh, you're right. You can be anything you want to be. No, they say you're a Democrat. They say you're a liberal and you're a Democrat. And when you say, no, I'm not, they go, something's wrong. How can you not be? You must be. I have had arguments many times with people on the left who are white telling me, Mike, you don't understand being black and you must be Democrat. Literally, they've said that to me. You just don't understand. It's about being black. I'm like, I've been black every day of my life. You've been black no days of your life. I think I know what it is to be black in America. I think I have a better clue than someone who's never been black and never will be black. No matter how much you want to be black, you can't be. But they don't see it. They don't register it. And it's the same thing that we're seeing with Charlamagne. When Joe Biden said to Charlamagne that you aren't black unless you vote for him, Charlamagne did not see, did not understand that he had just been insulted, that he had been denigrated, that he was told he has no choice, that he has no freedom, that he's on a reservation, and he's been told all the answers he wants. The answer he gave at that time was, well, I want to protect black people. Matter of fact, let me not use my words to describe it, because in the conversation with Larry Elder, Charlamagne tells you. Let's listen to what Charlamagne had to say for himself.
Is that you weren't mad about that?
I'm not gonna say it upset me, just like I'm not letting you upset me. You know what I mean? I don't tend to get upset over things like that. But what I did.
So he just says, okay, so Joe Biden telling Charlamagne and every other black person in America that they have no choice in their life, that they have no freedom to choose things politically, that they have everything has been predetermined for them by Joe Biden and other privileged elite white leaders. He has no problem with that. That didn't upset him. He was not upset that someone said you have no choice in your life. Can you think about that, man? Why would you not be upset about that? He's like, I'm not upset. Why wouldn't you be? He goes, I'm not upset with you, Larry Elder. Well, Larry Elder's just telling you he has a different opinion. Why would you be upset with Larry Elder for saying, I have a different opinion? But you're not upset at someone telling you you have no opinion. Larry Elder is saying, I have a different opinion. And the answer is, well, I don't get upset about that. As if what Larry Elder is saying is something to get people upset about. That people should get upset or can get upset because Larry Elder isn't following the approved message. Think about that. That's what we just heard Charlamagne say. I'm not upset with you because what you said should make me upset. Not being a Democrat should make Charlamagne upset. That is the meaning. The English language, English comprehension is very clear. And we understand words. They have meanings. And what Charlamagne said, whether he realizes it or not, is that he's saying he should be upset because Larry Elder isn't doing what he is told. Larry Elder is making a choice that hasn't been approved. And Charlamagne says, I won't be upset about that even though I should be. Those are his words. That's the meaning of his words. I'm not upset about that, as if you should be. And the thing that he isn't on, so he's not upset about what Larry Elder is doing, which is giving him another option. He's also not upset that someone told him he has no options, that he has no choice, that everything has been approved and pre-decided for him, that he has no choice. He only has, the path is in front of him and he has to walk it. He is politically a slave. And he wasn't upset about that either. Yeah, it gets kind of deep when you think about it. Let's go on and see what else Charlamagne had to say.
Well, you just not talk about a nigger wake-up call, and it seemed to me that should have been a wake-up call on your part to have a white guy come in here who also said, by the way, about Mitt Romney, because he didn't want to put more regulations on Wall Street, going to put y'all back in chains. And Joe Biden has lied for decades about his civil rights record, claiming that he desegregated movie theaters and restaurants in Wilmington, Delaware, when he didn't do any of that. He lied and said that he tried to visit Nelson Mandela during apartheid South Africa. He did not. And he came in here and told you aren't even black and let you think a certain kind of way. It seemed to me that should have been a nigga wake-up call for you, but it wasn't, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, for the record, I'm not a Democrat or Republican.
I didn't say you were.
Yeah, I think both.
I don't know what you are. I never even asked you what you.
So let me stop right there for a second. So Charlamagne then decides that he wants to defend himself. He's defending himself for not confronting Joe Biden, for not saying, how dare you predetermine my life and that of everyone else who has the same skin tone as me. Just because we have permanent suntans, you don't get to make my choices. So he goes, but I didn't say I was a Democrat. What's that got to do anything? No one asked him what his political preference was. And this is how bad it is. Charlamagne assumed that because he is black, then everyone must assume he's Democrat. He already accepts that that is the norm, that is the expectation people would have just because he exists. He goes, well, I didn't say I voted. No one asked you what party you voted for. No one asked you what party you are part of. Nowhere in the conversation that we are showing, nowhere is it being said that Larry Elder is saying, what party are you in? That you were part of this party push. No one said that. It was purely and singularly Charlamagne, who said, and volunteered, I didn't say I was a Democrat. No one cared. No one said you were. Doesn't change the difference. Doesn't change anything that is being discussed. It is his assumption, Charlamagne's assumption, that everyone else is going to assume that he's a Democrat, just like Biden did. That because you are black, you must be Democrat. He accepts that premise. That's why he's saying, but I didn't say that. I didn't say I'm a Democrat. As if that is the natural thing to expect. That is the only expectation, that it is monolithic. Blacks are monolithic, and there is only one result. Again, his words betray exactly what is going on here. And let's go on. Let's hear what else that we're going to hear from Charlamagne.
Your party affiliation.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, but you are black. And
Absolutely.
to have a white guy come in here and tell you have to say think a certain kind of way, otherwise you, quote, ain't black. Wow.
How should I have replied to him, you think?
What I just now said, how dare you insult me and tell me I think as a human being, let alone as a black person? I don't tell you how to think, Joe Biden. How dare you come in here and tell me how I should think? I'm going to vote for Donald Trump if I want to vote for Donald Trump. And if I want to vote for Donald Trump, it does not make me not black. 20% of black people, black men, as I said, voted for Donald Trump in 2020. Are they not black now? So only 80% of black people, black men walking around are really black, 20% are not because they voted for Donald Trump. How insulting is that? How condescending is that?
Now, this is interesting because Charlamagne now tries to turn it around and tries to regain control of the conversation again. And this is, mind you, this conversation isn't really happening between Larry Elder and Charlamagne. This isn't a conversation between Larry Elder and BET. This is a conversation for black Americans. This is a conversation between anyone on the conservative side and black America. That's the conversation that's going on. Charlamagne is the message to black America. And we have Larry Elder as the conservative. This is a message. And so we see that Charlamagne here says, well, what would you have said? You know, you're telling me that Joe Biden did this insulting thing, which I didn't notice. How would I know that it was insulting to presume that every black person is the same and that they all have no choice in their lives? They have no freedom, no political ideology, no independence, politically at the very least, to make choices for themselves. They're just ignorant and we all follow the same thing and do the same thing. That's what he's saying. That's what Charlamagne is supporting. He says, well, what would you have done? Well, Charlamagne, were you not listening to your guest? At the very beginning of this clip, starting this entire subject, we heard Larry Elder start off telling you exactly what you should have said. He started this conversation with, this is the proper path you should have been on. He repeats what he said at the start. Charlamagne isn't listening. Charlamagne doesn't care what Larry Elder is saying. The only reason that Charlamagne is paying attention at this point, the only reason that he is responding at this point is because he's being embarrassed. Because he is being shown to his audience as not thinking through his conversation. That he was kowtowing to the political pressure. That he was being an obedient political slave. And that's why we now see that throughout this 2 minutes now, that Charlamagne is starting to react because he has been embarrassed and he has been exposed. And now he's trying to find a way to show weakness in what Larry is saying so that he can regain his composure and say, well, see, that was a horrible idea. I have a better idea. I did this better. I'm smarter. No, it is better to still be a Democrat, to follow the approved messaging, to just do what I am told. That's what Charlamagne is trying to find. He's trying to find his out, to find a win, to justify what he did. Now he's only now, at the end of this, is he trying to pay attention to anything whatsoever which is why Larry has to repeat what he started the conversation with, which I think is very powerful. It tells you how much Charlamagne cares. He didn't care because he didn't think about it. He just did what he was told to do. And now that he has to critically think about it, now that he has to consider the consequences of what he did, when he has to consider the limitations that he accepted implicitly on his life, now he's somewhat upset. And he's not upset because of what Joe Biden did. He's upset at Larry Elder. He's upset because Larry Elder is showing him what he did wrong. Rather than celebrating that Larry Elder is saying, hey, you know what? I didn't remember. I didn't even think like that. Thank you, Larry. I have more options. You're right. We could have made more choices. You're right. I don't have to treat Kamala and Biden like this. I can challenge them. I don't have to be a puppet of the Democratic Party. I can give them harsh challenges and correct them because black people aren't monolithic. You can have a different opinion besides the one that has been approved for you. He could be saying that. That's what Charlamagne could be saying. He's not. Not even trying. Not even close. Let's hear how he finishes this up.
I mean, you're probably right, but I didn't take it in that way.
Well, I did.
As I said to him in that moment, it's just about me wanting something for my people, and I want to know what is he going to do for my people, and not only for.
So, he said, I didn't think about it. I didn't think of it like that. I didn't think about it. Charlamagne, that's your job. That's your job. You're an interviewer interviewing a person for the most powerful position in America. You're interviewing someone who wants to be president. And you're not thinking through the conversation? And your answer is, he didn't even notice how demeaning Joe Biden was being. How much Joe Biden demeaned him and every other black person. He said, no, I just want to see what we could get. His question was, what did Charlamagne say? At the time, what was his most important question? Not that he was being demeaned, not that he was being talked down to, not that he was being told that he was a political slave. No, his big problem is, what do I get? What do black people get? What are you going to give us as slaves? I want people to focus on that. Please, clip this part of the conversation that we're having right now. I want to hear people's comments on this. I wanted to hear people tell me that you think I'm wrong. Do you think I'm wrong? Because that's what he just said. Listen to what he said. I was concerned about what we can get. He wasn't concerned about the fact that they were political slaves. He wasn't concerned about the fact that he had been demeaned. That he and a race of people were told they were meaningless and they have no choices. He didn't care about any of that. He just wanted to get his. He wanted to get paid. The only question he had for Joe Biden was, will black people get paid? That was it. It doesn't matter that they're slaves. It doesn't matter that they've been insulted. It doesn't matter that the choices have been taken away from them as independent human beings. None of that mattered. Did I get paid? That's the only thing he could think of at that time. And he hasn't thought about it since that time, according to this interview with Larry Elder. He didn't even think about it since that time. He has never once gone back and said, hey, you know what? I was being abused. I was being used and abused politically as well as individually, as well as a race. Didn't even think about it. Never crossed his mind. And I believe there's an audience who is watching this with me right now, didn't cross your minds either. But it should. And I go back to what I said back in May of 2020, when I said, hey, why is it that black people are beat up on, that we are attacked, why we are the only group politically that are told you can't have an independent voice, that you can't make decisions for yourself. You are a monolith, that the choice has already been made for you and you just have to live with it. It's insulting. Women, you say that about women, they're going to demonize you as a sexist and try and railroad you out of whatever industry you're in. Say it about gay or trans people. I dare you. I dare you to say that about trans people or gay people. Tell them that they don't have any political choices. Tell them that they have to follow and just obey. That they have a problem, that they are the problem if they don't just obey what they've been told to do. I dare you to do that in this climate, to say that to someone who's trans or gay. I dare you. Because it's not going to happen. Oh, no. That's verboten. It's not that you're wrong. It's that you can't say that out loud. But you can say it to a black person all day. And that's considered positive. That's considered okay. That's allowed. I saw this last night. This story came out last night. I saw it last night. I was talking about it with a friend of mine who showed it to me. And no one wants to talk about this. This is a story that no one is going to cover, that no one's going to talk about, that's going to come and go. Because Larry Elder isn't running high enough in the rankings on the Republican Party. So they don't care. He's not going to get enough money to make it interesting for the major mainstream news media. It's a black man who's a conservative, so they don't want to give him press in the first place. They don't want to talk about him. Remember, these are the same people. They don't want to talk about Larry Elder because these are the same people who said that Larry Elder, running for governor of California, was the black face of white supremacy. Being a black conservative is being racist, according to the left, according to people like Charlamange and BET. They support this suppression of black people. They support this abuse of political ideology. So I don't think Larry Elder is going to get enough attention about this story that he told, about this conversation he had with Charlamagne. And it's going to disappear from BET. It's going to disappear from people's minds. Just like my conversation in 2020, May 24th of 2020, disappeared from people's minds. They just went on. Disappeared. Oh, did that happen? Oops. But here's the thing. We need to address these things. You cannot fix a system if you can't recognize that it is broken. You cannot treat people as political slaves and expect them to react like they're free or to support something like they're free. And your system will always be broken if you're treating people in this manner. It's just that simple. And this is what the left does. It's really sad. To me, it is really, really sad. And you can't talk about these things. You can't talk about these things. It is evil, and it is something you're supposed to just leave alone. You're the bad guy. You're the bad guy for bringing this up. Switching subjects, it's kind of like saying that if you have a green dot card, if you have one of those Walmart green dot cards, it's been shut down. Millions of people have been shut out of their bank accounts, but you're not supposed to talk about that. This isn't mainstream media news to tell people that their Walmart cards may not work, that they can't draw money out of it, that people have gone a week without being able to use this. It's not mainstream news media. This isn't a mainstream news media story. Don't talk about Walmart. Don't talk negatively about the economy. Don't talk about banks screwing up. You can't have that conversation. Don't talk about that. Don't tell black people they can be conservatives. Don't tell black people that there is a choice besides being a Democrat. There isn't. So says BET, so says Charlamagne on The Breakfast Club. And when Larry Elder says, and that's a lie, and that's insulting, and you should be upset about that. They're angry with Larry. They're angry with Larry Elder for daring to point out how screwed up they are. Is there anyone who disagrees with me on that? Anyone who thinks, Mike, you just don't understand. You don't understand what it is to be black. You don't understand what it is to have this conversation. Is there anyone who wants to try and tell me that? I'm happy to hear it. Let's have that conversation if that's what you think. Because I think that's silly. But I mean, if you think that, fantastic. Let's have that conversation. I know that you're not supposed to have this conversation, and most people are going to see this after the fact. They're not going to see it on Sunday. It's the middle of the holidays. It's the middle of the summer vacation. The story is being suppressed because we've talked about Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. We've talked about what's happening in Ukraine and Maui. The story is being suppressed. I get it. But let's have this conversation. Did you realize how wrong Charlamagne is? Did you realize how evil it was for BET to not challenge Joe Biden on that? Did you realize how little empathy Joe Biden has for black people? Or any American for that matter, as we see with Maui, as we see with the Sudan, as we see with Afghanistan. He just doesn't care. He just wants you to vote and shut up. That's it. He wants you to donate money, vote Democrat, and shut up. Keep your head down and do what you're told. That's the Biden-Harris administration. Very similar to the Obama-Biden administration. And it's kind of scary. It's kind of terrifying. It's really, really evil. I don't know, folks. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I just don't get it. But I think I do. I'm pretty sure I do. And so, I don't know. I'm just so disturbed by all this. Hang on a second, folks. I'm trying to fix something with my system here. I'm trying to make sure I'm up to date. I know you heard the commercial. It was Rumble. Just checking on the Rumble connection. I don't know, folks. I mean, you tell me. And I know people can't call in today. Our phone lines are still down. I know. And I apologize. And when we have the money and we can get the phone back on, then we'll have the phone back on for me to use personally, as well as to let you be able to call in. And we'll be able to get everything back to where we were before. But we're rebuilding. We lost our home. We lost 90% of everything I own. And so we have to rebuild. And that takes time. Hang on one second. No, go. I'm sorry, that's my puppy. And he's readjusting to New York City. Come here. Come here. See? That's gone. Yes, I know. See? So that's gone. He's still doing okay in New York. He's sort of doing okay. He was up all night and kept me up all night. He's sick right now. He's been sick literally all night. He's either been asleep or he's been throwing up. So, and he's crying right now, as you can hear, which means I need to take care of him. So I need to go. Because I don't want to be up all night again tonight. So I'm going to go take care of my puppy. But, you know, I hope people will see this and decide that they will like share, subscribe. Maybe if you have the money, if you have the opportunity, you can donate $1.50 a month. Maybe if you can go to our Patreon and be able to do that. Or you can go to YouTube and make a one-time donation. That's up to you. And we'll use it to try and get the phone back on, try and regain some of our life, some of the things that we have lost. But here's the answer, folks. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's all about you. It's about what you decide. It's about the choices that you make. And we hope that the choices you make will include us in supporting us and in being able to talk about the issues that matter to us all. I can only hope for that. Bear with me 1 second. One second here, folks. Where is it? There it is. Bear with me. There we go. Hang on. My system's acting up here. And there we go. I just want to play one thing for you guys. Here we go. And so let's do this for a second real quick. Is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Boss, Dragon of the Silent Tier. I'm happy to be here with you today.
Eric Holder, the Attorney General of the United States, admitted he has not read the Arizona immigration law. I know it is a difficult task to stand up in front of our peers and say to Congress that Congress has failed to listen to voters.
You here at CPAC said yes to President Donald Trump in 2016, and I know you're going to say yes to.
She was very aware that she had the flag in her hands and that the flag was dragging on the ground. That is a intentional action. She knows what she is doing. She then drops the flag.
Understand the logic, and we see this in social media on a regular basis, and it's something that Newsweek decided not to tell you about.
Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, a representative in Congress who is writing laws to deny American citizens their rights, has no idea what she's talking about.
And they are against the vaccine mandate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, you support that?
Last time I checked, there were not a lot of planes crashing into each other. At airports, right? You can meet a very, very stringent accuracy rate when it's important, when it matters, like in federal elections.
The quote from Joe Biden where he is admitting that he is willing to lie to the American people. So thank you for that. And again, we want to say thank you to each and every one of you for being part of our audience. We really do appreciate you. We appreciate the conversations we get to have with you. And no matter whether we have to downscale or upscale or whatever changes we need to make to our system, we will continue to do this every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. as much as we can to speak with you about the issues that affect us all, to really stay in touch with each and every one of you about everything. Because we think it's important, we value you, we thank you. And with that, I'm going to go and take care of my puppy. We've been on for just under about 3 hours today. Was that right? Okay. So a little bit shorter than usual, but folks, I look forward to seeing your comments, and we'll talk about this all again very, very soon. Thank you.